Welcome, my name is Melissa Weatherby. I am a degree candidate here at the Graduate School for the MSIT and the MAT program. My capstone this semester was working with the Little School in Weston, Vermont. They are a privately owned preschool and they're accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which makes them special in a way because there's not a lot of accredited preschools. It also makes different rules for them than some of the other preschools. The problem I was working with, Leah came to the Graduate Center for our capstone kickoff and asked for a student to help them build a parent community. They service 60 families that cover 10 towns, 10 tiny towns in upstate Vermont. So a sense of community at the school was really hard for them, and she thought if she tried to do that online, she might have better success. As I discussed the problem with her, I realized that the little school didn't have a web presence at all. They had a few sporadic pages here and there they had no control over and no way to update. So the problem really became that of helping them with their transparency for their accreditation, get a lot of their materials up online, as well as create the parent community that she was looking for. So the solution that we came up with was to not only build a parent community, but build a website to host it with. And that turned out to be the website that I created for the little school, and I'll talk about that just a little bit more in a minute. However, I mean, we had the solution, but how were we going to get there? And more importantly, how was I going to get there? I spent the first week after discovering this really in a panic of this huge project and not knowing what I was going to do with it. And then I took a step back and I thought about the classes I had taken here at the Graduate Center, and particularly project management, and really looked at how I was going to handle that. And what I came up with during project management, I had created a personal learning environment to house all my materials. And I thought that was a great way to work with my capstone as well. So I created a Joomla site to house all my materials, and also to give my advisor, my directors, and my client a way to kind of check in on my progress. And this also contained my blog and all of the pieces and deliverables I needed. And it helped me to stay organized too, which was a good thing. So that was, once I had this set up, it was like, okay, now I need to figure out what am I going to put in there. It's a great place to have some place for all the materials, but what are we going to do? So I started out with my project management and my work breakdown structure. And with this, I was really able to kind of hone in on the pieces that I needed to do and make them little and make them manageable, one step at a time. My first real tackle for project management was to create the charter for the little school. And I felt that this was really important to make sure I was on the same page with my client, that I was going to cover their needs and do it in a way that matched their philosophy for the school. One of the things I learned early on as we were going over web colors was that they really didn't want a website that was candy colored or primary colored. Just because that they were a preschool, they still wanted the more muted tones. They felt that those candy colors were insulting to young children. And that was really interesting for me. I was kind of glad to hear it because, you know, working with red, blue, and green for that long would have probably drove me nuts. But it was an interesting development in the project. So what I came up with as I started to think about this, I needed the pieces to put the site together. I could have coded the site in straight HTML. However, it would have been really hard for my client to update, and that was an important piece that I needed to be able to teach them how to maintain it going forward. I knew that my MAT was going to help me with that, but I also had to create it in such a way that they could update it. So I chose a content management system called Joomla. There were other content management systems out there. WordPress wouldn't have worked because it doesn't have the forums and the parent community capability that Joomla or Drupal would have. So really my choices came down to Joomla and Drupal, and being a student at the Grad Center, my support and my comfort level lied within Joomla, and I stuck with that because it would work. The second piece was to build their community, and I chose a product called Community Builder, and this was kind of I chose it by default. I would have preferred to work in Jom Social, but the budget for the project was $0, and Jom Social has a price tag. So I worked with Community Builder. I had a few challenges there in making it cooperate and do what I wanted it to do, but they have a great online forum support, and I also have a great backup here at the Grad Center with the Joomla users group. So they weren't big problems, and they were fairly easy to overcome. The third piece I chose to work with was for the actual forums. It's fairly new, and it's called Kuina. And that controls the forum function on the website, and it's also easy for the school to maintain going forward. One thing I learned about the pieces I chose that I thought was really cool, Joomla is Swahili for all together, and Kuina is Swahili for to speak. So my site, in its naming, comes together as we speak all together, which is what my client was looking for. Accessibility was another important piece. It was important to me, and as I talked to my client about it, it made sense to her. The school is accessible to all children. They work very hard to cover all socioeconomic backgrounds, as well as provide for the needs of their students, so that she felt that the site should do the same. Accessibility in Joomla has a few things to overcome. The first thing I had to overcome was that Joomla outputs its content in tables, which is not accessible. So I overcame that by starting with the Bees template, which takes care of those overrides. As far as testing the site for accessibility, one of the big things I wanted to make sure that Joomla worked well with a text reader. And I can test that myself. I have JAWS. I can use it, but I don't do it on an everyday basis. I'm not very adept at it. So I asked one of the students that was interning in our office at Landmark, who uses a text reader every day, to go through my site and see what he thought. And he took the URL, he went home one night, and he came back and he said, I had absolutely no problems, your skip navigation works great, I really enjoyed visiting your site. To me, that was an A+ in text reader accessibility, so I left that at that. The next test I did, I used the Wave toolbar to test the site, and what this does is it puts messages on your screen and lets you know where you may have issues with accessibility. I didn't get any red flags. That was a good point. I did get a few warnings, and it's funny because you kind of have to decide what's more important. One of the warnings I got was the JavaScript in the head of my page, because JavaScript can be an accessibility issue. However, what it's controlling is somebody's ability to make the text on the page either bigger or smaller, and I felt that was important too, because although people can do it with their keyboard, not everybody knows that. So I decided that a warning was okay in that particular instance. The alt tag, the big green piece here on the alt tag, that's a good thing. That's saying that I have that there. I've used the structure of the site, the H1s and the H2s in the correct way. And on the bottom of the page, there are two warnings here with the photos and then this little eye here. And what those are, I used a random image module. And as I tried to work around with the PHP and make it so that it would spit out at least a generic tag rather than just the name of the file, it broke the whole page. And I decided to go with done is better than perfect, and it's okay, it's still accessible, it's just not as accessible as I would like it to be. And this final one has to do with another component I'm using called John Comments, and even though it's not turned on this page, it puts this wonderful little message here letting people know that they can't see the comments because they're not signed in, which makes no sense in its context. So finally, after struggling with it for quite a while, I emailed Jen and said, help. And she said, take the easy way out and set it to a display none and call it good. And that's what I did. I've still been playing around with it a little because there's got to be an answer there. But it works for now. So the accessibility piece, I did a few other tests. Overall, there's a screencast on my site that explains everything I did with the accessibility. And I think the site is very accessible for what I was working with. My teaching materials, these were really important. It's great to build a site for somebody, but if they can't maintain it going forward, either you're going to have a lot of headaches or the site's just going to not be used. So I spent a lot of time putting together a manual for the teachers and the parents to use to update the site. And it's very simple screenshots, explanation, walk them through step by step. I felt that that was important so that it wasn't overwhelming just to get to the materials. Another piece that I felt was important is it's great to give them a paper manual, but what happens if it gets lost? What happens if somebody spills coffee on it or whatever? I was worried about that. So what I did was I created a section called Helpful Hints. This section is only available to signed-in users, and it's available at 2 different levels. So if a parent signs in, they're going to get these bottom 2 tags called Community and Updating Profiles, because those are the things that are important to them that they need to know how to do. However, if one of the teachers or the director who is also in charge of editing the pages and the blog and everything signs in, they're going to get these other tags so that they can get into the pages on how to do a blog or how to update the photos. That way, everybody has access to what they need, so it's not lost, it's on the site, and also it will allow me to go in and update it if I need to, without having to go to the school or mail them anything. And this is just a shot of what the parents will get. If you're interested, I have the book here if anyone wants to look at it when I'm done. And that's the actual hard copy that I'm going to give to the director. It has everything in it. And then the parents, when we launch, will get a smaller copy with just their stuff in it. This is another part of the parent community. I created a screencast to show parents how to update their profile. When the site goes live, each parent will have their own profile. It will have a stock photo and their name and their children's names. What they're going to be able to do is go in and put any additional information in that they want. Because of privacy issues, the school cannot release this information, and it's going to be very clear to the parents that if they put it in there, it will be released to the registered community, and that will cover the school as far as privacy goes. The other tab that I added after talking to Leah was the My Children tab, because a lot of times when you have kids in school, everybody knows you as Sam's mom, but they don't know your name. And if they see your photo, they may not recognize you out of context. But if they see Sam as your child, it allows them to put 2 and 2 together. And we felt that that would help with building the community. So that was a tag that we added into the community, what the Community Builder already had there. This is a view of the forums. The introductions, we chose to leave it open so that the whole community, the whole school community, has one forum rather than separate it out by the rooms. There are parents that have children in more than one room, and they also wanted to really build a sense of community for the whole school, not just by the separate classrooms. So the introductions, Leah went ahead and put one in here, and then each of the teachers, this will be part of their training, will go in and put their introduction in hopes that the parents will then follow suit, kind of learning to do it by following somebody else's example is what we're hoping for. The comments and suggestions, this is going to apply not only to the online community and the website, but also to the school. And this will be monitored by school personnel so that they can keep up with what parents are looking for. School news is a place just to let people know what's happening around the school. And then the help is so that if parents are having trouble, they have a place to post to ask. For the first few months, this help is actually going to feed into my email, and as the school becomes more comfortable with the site, the hopes is that the parents and the teachers will begin helping one another, and I can step back even further. This last part, the Little Schools list, this is something that 2 parents started on the bulletin board outside the school, items for sale or trade or to give away. Because when you have kids, you have all these things, they outgrow so quickly, and they wanted to trade within the community. So we felt by starting the forums with something they had already attempted to do offline would give the parents more ownership and make them more willing to go into the community. The other piece about this list is I put it together to do the tutorial pieces, step by step, put one of the forums together, and then I went ahead after I got the tutorial done and I deleted everything. And I sent the tutorial to Leah via email, and she's the one that put everything back up. She said the tutorial was really easy to follow, and she had no questions while she was doing it. So that made me feel really good, like I was on the right track with the materials. So why did this solve their problem? Why does this make the problem of their community so much easier? In reality, it doesn't solve their problem at all. I've given them the tools to solve their problem. I've given them a website to house their materials and to become more transparent, and I've given them a community and the forums and the blogging that they asked for. But in reality, the solving of the problem is going to fall back on the school and how they maintain the site and how they use it going forward. To help them do this, I've done things such as create a community best practices report to let them know things like the community will build itself, but they need to not take too firm of a hand. They need to more guide it than control it, and let the parents really decide where things are going to go, and that will help to make their community stronger. The other piece going forward is going to be important in the way that we launch this to the parents. The last week of August, they have their teacher in-service days, and I will be there for at least 3 days training the teachers on how to use the blogging software and how to use the forums. We've set up the training so that I'll come in the first day for about an hour, and we'll go through the tutorials and we'll go through any questions that the teachers may have. And then in line with their philosophy of play as the cornerstone of learning is I'm going to leave and they're going to play with it for a while. They're going to see what they can do. We are going to do this on my site instead of the live site, because right now that it's hosted on my site and it will be moving to its permanent home. But just for safety's sake, if they break it, it's going to be done. The training will be done on my site, so they're not going to break the real thing. So we're going to let them play, let them get used to it. Each teacher at the school has their own computer. One of the parents donated the little mini computers that just came out, so that each teacher has their own laptop, which is really helpful in this exercise. And then after 2 days after my first tutorial session, I will come back. We'll start out answering any questions that they may have come across, and then we'll go from there. They're really going to lead that class in a way so that I can be answering their questions rather than telling them what to do. And again, I felt that that really worked better with the whole philosophy of the school, is to let them lead it. So that falls under my next steps. After that, the first week of school, Leah has chosen and spoken with 3 parents who have been in on the building of the site, who have looked at it and checked the navigation and things. And they're going to be the beginning moderators for the forums. So the first week of September, I'll be meeting with these parents, and we'll be going over the various aspects of moderating the forums, such as approving content. It's set now so that posts will not go up on the forums until somebody has approved them. Again, to do with the privacy issues and things surrounding a preschool. Even though the forums aren't open to the public, there's still some issues that they have to be aware of. So those materials will include for these people, what they need to look for, especially if they're okaying photos, that the photos have to be up to certain standards, and not depict anything that could be offensive to other people. So that's the second week, the first week of September. The second week, we're going to have an open house at the school, and that's going to be the big launch of the website. The open house will start an hour before pickup time, because they have parents that pick up early, and then run till an hour after pickup time. And it's really going to feature the website and launch it to the parents. One thing I'm still trying to come up with is some kind of gimmicky thing that we can give them that will have the website URL, so that they have that with them at all times, like a magnet or something along those lines. Maybe a mouse pad is the other thing that we talked about, because then it's right there by their computer. So those are the next steps for the school. The official launch of the site moving from my host to theirs will be that first week of September. They've already secured the web address. Leah just was kind of wary about paying all the money for hosting before the site was ready to go live and paying it well. So I offered to do it on my site. It wasn't a big deal, and it was easier for me. So the site will be rolling over to their URL come the first week of September, and the training will continue on mine until the second week when we launch it to the community. The next steps for myself, I'd really like to find a way to package this and to sell it to other schools. When I began my capstone, thinking about my capstone last September, I really wanted to do something like this for an elementary school. I was new in a community and felt it really hard to get to know the parents because I'm a single mom, I work full time, I go to school. PTA meetings didn't happen for me. They did, but not very often. And so I thought that this would be a great thing for an elementary school and that they could involve the kids and the kids could be involved in the updates. However, that didn't work. The school just wasn't ready to move at the pace I needed them to for a capstone. So that's why this was so perfect for me, because it was the same thing, just on a smaller scale and with a preschool. So I was really excited about the project, but I want to really work on it and make it so that I could package it and sell it to other schools. And in with that is adding a component called CiviCRM, which is a relationship management database that will really allow for the school to track everything here on the site. The parents, the kids, the donations, because that's another thing that the little school wants to do. They want to do online donations and online tuition payment. And CiviCRM will really allow them to do that. And that's where I almost had a really big scope creep until Amy piped up and said, that's not in your rubric, don't do it. And you'll be happy to know that was really the only one. So for me, that's pretty good. But yeah, about 4 weeks ago, I thought I was going to just, throw CiviCRM in there and be good. But I didn't. It's installed. It's sitting in the background waiting. So that will be part of the phase 2. And also, when I thought about it for the client as well, they've got a lot to learn with the June Law site, and to throw that in the mix would really probably make Leah's head explode. So I'd like to thank you and invite you to ask me any questions you may have about my project.